Greetings, everyone. Welcome to a Simmer and Forslund. Rob Simpson here, along with John Forslund. Hi, John.
Hello, Simmer.
How are you tonight?
I'm great. I'm great. Ready to start this homestand here. Get
You got
going.
good. You got your lid on. I'm going to go to the lid right now. Like I've got some new glue for the tube. Look at
You
the
should put a hat on.
see
Yeah.
the toupee.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah, I
That's
fixed
nice.
her up. I fixed. They put it. They
You must,
reaffixed
you
it.
must, you must glue that thing down.
I did. It's new
Yeah,
stuff. You should try it.
it's a nice look.
There you go. It's better. Cover,
Okay.
cover up the quaff. Two game. By the way, SeattleHockeyInsider.com is where you can find this, and then you can also check us out on Simmer Puck at YouTube and Facebook and wherever else you want to look. 2 game suspension for Mr. Yanni Gourde. Your reaction to the hit and the subsequent penalty?
Well, the hit is unfortunate. The hit is a retaliation and frustration, and he definitely left his feet. The league's going to frown on that. They're going to look at the context of the play when it happened, what the score was. Luckily, Ekholm wasn't injured on the play, didn't miss any time. Yanni has a past history. He was suspended in 2019 for a head hit on Jordan Stahl in Carolina. Yes, he was high sticked off the face-off. Yes, there was no penalty called on the play. Yes, there could have been. It doesn't take away from the blatant frustration shown by Yanni Gourde. It's just too bad. And anyway, he'll serve it, and we'll move on. And that's the way it is. And everything else doesn't really matter. All the narratives about a double standard that some people think there is, and Connor McDavid not wanting to engage with Yanni Gourde. That's hockey. And
Yeah.
those scrums and those sticks come up high off faceoffs, and it happens. So there's payback down the road. The best way to do it is start beating Edmonton, which they have a hard time doing,
Yeah.
and you move on.
And of course, there's always the talk about consistency in calls, consistency in suspensions. But if you just pointed out, hey, it's one at a time. And in this case, it doesn't matter what else is going on over there. It's what's going on right here.
Well, when it comes to suspensions, no one's happy.
Yeah.
So there's always one side and one fan base that gets riled up. By and large, I think they do a good job. I really do. I mean, I know it's hard to get to the transparency. I wish there was more of it. I wish we understood how they legislate the amount of games. That seems to be a head scratcher sometimes. But I do think that, listen, the rules are in place for a reason. If Ekholm's a smaller guy, or if Gourde catches him in a worse spot,
Yeah.
he's really injured on that play.
Yeah.
He really is. As much as I love Yanni Gourde, he's one of my favorite players. I've said that on this program with you, and I believe that he is the heart and soul of the Seattle Kraken.
Mm-hmm.
But the league's going to look at that and say we can't have it. So I don't have a problem with it. I just think it's too bad he did it. I mean, he's got to. It's easy to say you got to think. Certainly in my role, never being out there, never going through something like that. But being around the game as long as I have and talking with players and understanding how the game's played, sometimes you have to table it. You have to keep your discipline in play always, and live to do it at another time. And he picked the wrong spot, and he put the team in a tough spot now without him for 2 games when they need him. That's
Yeah.
bad.
They particularly put him in a tough spot because the injuries or illness has mounted up. So,
Mhm.
uh, Vince Dunn skated before Saturday's practice, apparently. So hopefully he's ready to rock and roll because obviously until he was out of the lineup, he was the team's top scorer from the blue line.
Yeah.
And we now have a little list here of guys that may
Mhm.
or may not be available due to illness or injury. So it's piling up. That said, the Leafs Sunday will be coming off this very emotional, very chippy, very high energy game
Mhm.
against Vancouver that they lost 6-4. It's also the Leafs' third game in 4 nights. So let's just address that matchup first with kind of the intangibles that are going on here for both these teams.
Well, the Leafs are feeling some pressure. A good team with high-end talent, obviously, but some holes defensively. Figures always pointed between the pipes.
Yeah.
I would imagine Ilya Samsonov plays Sunday night in Seattle.
Yeah.
Martin Jones is, putting his finger in the dike there at a position where they need the young goalie, Joseph Woll, back in a big way. It's a long trip for the Maple Leafs. With all that being said, you got to respect their talent. And the Kraken, we're not sure 100% of what the lineup will look like. And the ability to play down the middle against this team will be challenged. There's no question that's going to be a tough one. Toronto's very good in the face-off circle. They were against Vancouver. They will be against the Kraken. So it's almost like you should just relinquish the draw and get yourself into the best defensive position, or win the 50-50 off a lost face-off, because Toronto will start with the puck a lot. And Toronto will be, angry. They'll be looking to atone. They've been challenged by their coach. Their star players have in the past week. It'll be an interesting game. And it starts the 4-game homestand for the Kraken, where they need to win 3 out of 4, in my opinion, and then go to San Jose and win that game before the break. These are all winnable games, with the exception being the Toronto game. That's one that's going to be a challenge. But the other ones, they are in a position to win and really need to.
If they're playing as the team that had a 13-game unbeaten streak, they're in good shape. When you're talking about the Chicago Blackhawks, St. Louis Blues, Columbus Blue Jackets, San Jose Sharks as the matchups after Toronto. So as we always say, no easy night in the NHL, but these are games, if they're confident, if they're rolling, if they're healthy, they take care of business, they put themselves in a good position. If they don't, if this is a stumble bum moment, then there's some deep doo-doo going on heading into the break.
Well, based on who's going to be in the lineup, it won't be 100% for the Kraken. So that means they're going to have to dial it down in terms of how they simplify the game. They're going to have to play a real simple, strong defensive game and frustrate Toronto. Toronto coming off the game, there's 2 things in play here. Coming off the game against the Canucks, you're right, emotional game. Sometimes there's a letdown. I don't think that'll be in play. So if Toronto does not let down because they want this game, if they get frustrated and stymied, and it's not easy on some of their guys, that's where you're at, And obviously discipline will be important. You don't want to give this team power play opportunities. And then there's Joey Daccord. If he can stay on his game where it's been at, and he was, again, very solid in Edmonton, I thought, they have a good chance. Daccord puts them in a position to win most of the games here in the last 6 weeks.
What wasn't there in the 3 losses that was there during the winning streak?
Well, the whole thing started with, in my opinion, the change of game time. Okay. So the Pittsburgh game gets changed from 6 o'clock to an afternoon start.
Yep.
No one has talked about it. It's my opinion. I just think that there was only one opportunity to really practice or get a morning skate in, and it was the morning of the game in Pittsburgh on Monday. Sunday was a scheduled day off coming in out of Columbus. So the players are allowed 4 full days off via the CBA, and they're agreed upon, and they're in place and scheduled. You can't change that. So the Kraken did not have a skate because there was an afternoon game in Pittsburgh. Had to go to New York. There was no skate there. Obviously, it was a back-to-back. They had a full travel day to go to Edmonton. Now, Simmer, I've been at this a long time, as you know. It's been well established by people who like to let me know that I've been around a long time. I don't remember a road trip like this. I remember long road trips. Somebody pointed out the one last year where they won every game. Well, that started in Edmonton and then went east.
Yeah.
And went to Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Boston, Chicago, then back home. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've never seen a team go from New York, have a travel day, and play in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Okay, so they came a little bit off it. And to be fair, the injuries were a big problem. And this sickness that's been going through the team is legit. Like it's a bad one. I talked with a couple of the guys who played through it. and are playing through it. And it's a mess. It's not good. So and it's going around the NHL. There's a lot of teams that have had this. Not that it's linked by any stretch. It's just the time of the year and the schedule, and everybody's tired and they can't wait to get to a break. But now the Kraken, because of the 3 losses, now are in a position where they have to win. They have to keep the pace here. They're falling because they played more games than everybody else. So they have to keep the pace.
Here's the fun question, John. I guess it depends on the symptom. If this type of illness is a upper body or a lower body injury, it is.
They're just injuries,
It is
right?
my belief it's both, depending on the symptoms that
Yeah,
occur based on your illness.
yeah.
We'll go any further than that. I know you had a chance to glance at my piece on Philip Grubauer, who has 3 years remaining after this one. I believe it was it 5.9 mil. I think the number based on his transactions and medical history was 9 since he was in Colorado in terms of lower body injuries, whatever.
Mm.
What do we think about this situation moving forward? I mean, is John part of it is whether Joey Daccord is the next Spencer Martin or if Joey Daccord is the next younger version of Matt Murray.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to say that. Joey's played so well. It's a short sample, a small sample, in a short period of time. Grubauer has a resume. Grubauer has a resume that has warranted this contract. I mean, he was a finalist for the Vezina when he was signed. Now, the year that these contracts were given out, Grubauer's, Schwartz, Wenberg's, these free agent contracts that the Kraken signed before the first year, Grieger, the league was coming off an abbreviated season. It was a 56-game schedule, you'll recall, with divisional play.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter, because Philip Grubauer put the numbers up to warrant consideration to be one of the top 3 goalies in the league within that type of a schedule. The playoffs didn't go well for him. Wenberg scored 17 goals, playing against the same teams over and over again. It wasn't real. But like the 48-game schedules we've had because of lockouts and the work stoppages and all these things, it's the season. And like PK Subban won the Norris Trophy in 2013, it was an abbreviated season. PK Subban deserved the Norris Trophy because he was the best defenseman that year in the NHL, but it was a shortened season. It doesn't really matter to management when they have to sign players and deal with agents, because agents are just saying, hey, you measure my guy against the rest of the league. So Ron was in a spot where he had a chance to get a guy that was coveted by many teams and gave him term because he wanted term and a substantial amount of money. I still believe in Grubauer. I mean, I've told you this. I know he's, had some injury concerns multiple times, right? Daccord has proven now that he can play, and he can play very well at this level. I still think they need 2 goalies. And I still think it's too soon to just forget what Philip Grubauer did in the second half of last season and in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. He's earned this opportunity to come back and play again. If Daccord continues, it could be his goal. It could be his net. I don't think either one of them need to be the quintessential number 1 goalie. I think they can play 2 guys. If the Boston Bruins can play 2 guys, the Seattle Kraken can play 2 guys. And it will work. And it will work. And I think that's where it is. If this continues to be a problem with Grubauer, there's nothing worse for management and ownership in the NHL today than a bad contract. It's hard to get out from underneath it. It's hard to move that guy. You end up in that awful spot someday where management has to have a conversation with ownership about a buyout. They're a long way away from that. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think Grubauer will reestablish himself, and I think he'll work well with Joey. And then Joey has to prove, as he gets around the league on multiple occasions, that he's the goods. There have been many goalies, as you know, who have jumped into the scene here and have taken off, and then you get fooled by it. Yeah. You pointed out a couple of names there. You just have to give it more time for both guys.
Yeah. Well, Spencer Martin's the most recent example, right up the road in Vancouver.
Yeah.
They bought into that, thought he was going to be the guy, and it turned when Demko got hurt last season, it turned into a disaster.
That's
Even
right.
even the Hamburglar,
The
uh,
same. Yep.
Andrew Hammond in Ottawa, after that
Yep.
unbelievable season, second half of the season where he carried a team single-handedly
Right.
the postseason, and that was like, oh, that was mostly it, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you could go through that list on and on and on and on. Well, it's
Right.
interesting, and the nice thing is, by the way, Daccord does have a year left for a little over $1 billion, so it's actually not so bad if they are both functioning, fully functional. You got five
Right.
point, and then you got a kid working for about $1 million. So all
Right.
put together, it's not unbelievable. All right, saving it for last this week. I should have teased it off the top. We usually do our favorite number
Mhm.
of a certain number. This week it's number 22. I'm curious if we're going to come up with the same guy.
Right. Okay.
Now, I'm going to let you go first with number 22.
Mike Bossy.
Ooh. Okay, not the same guy. Good job. What do you got?
Same guy?
Not the same guy.
That same guy. Yeah. So Mike Bossy for me. Yeah. I mean, prolific shooter, scorer, big part of dynasty with the New York Islanders, strong, kind of underrated in other facets of his game that were aside from his shot. But I mean, he's the king of the one timer of that era. And, you know, guys like Alex Ovechkin have modeled their game, and in that same vein, right?
Many have after.
Yeah,
And a 50 goal and 50 game guy.
that's right.
And if I'm not mistaken, was he the first to do it after? Well, Maurice Richard had 50 and 50.
Yeah,
Gretzky obviously did it multiple times. I think Bossy was the next.
I think so.
I don't think Bobby Hull did it.
I don't think Bobby Hull did it.
No, but he had multiple. He set the new mark, 54 goals, I think,
Right,
but he didn't do it in 50 games. I think Bossy was the second guy to do it.
right. And then Cam Neely and so on. Yeah,
Cam Neely was personal games, not team games, so they
right,
never really gave him credit for it.
right.
Uh, okay. Obviously, an outstanding choice, the late, great Mike Bossy. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm going with Steve Shutt,
Oh, that's great.
Montreal Canadiens. And here's the reason why. Very simple. Obviously, he's fantastic. Probably a slightly more underrated guy because you had the rock and roll star winger of Guy Lafleur with the hair, and we've talked about the Montreal Canadiens dynasty before.
Mhm.
Shut slightly overlooked. But when I have to learn a code, if somebody says my garage code is this, or my lock is this, or my address is this, if they say my address is 2704 Main Street, I'll go, okay, Jeremy Roenick, Bobby Orr. If they say my address is 2219 Pine Street, I'll say Steve Shutt is the 22 that comes into my head, and I'll say Steve Shutt, Steve Eiserman. So it's always a player.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, if it's 03, believe it or not, my guy's Tommy Bergman. I don't know. But
The old Red Wing. That's wow.
yeah. And I think my 17 is another old Red Wing, Mike Foligno. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
22, when the number comes up for any purpose like that, Steve Shutt pops into my head. And I think it's from distantly admiring the exotic Montreal Canadiens team and hating them kind of because they were so damn good,
Mhm.
kind of loving them and respecting them even at a young age, understanding the game of hockey. So there you go.
Well, and don't forget the center, right? Jacques Lemaire. So Lemaire, Lafleur, and Shutt. One of the great lines in the history of the game.
Right. But never really earned like the name. You
No,
look
they never, no.
never earned like they weren't the gag line like in New York. They weren't
Well, and
the
then that's where Scotty Bowman started with never number the lines because the press used to say, well, your first line, he'd say, what line are you talking about?
right.
Because then there was Gainey and then there was other guys, right? So, but Jimmy Roberts, I had a long history with in the minor leagues, former Canadian, and he used to talk about Steve Shutt and the kind of competitor he was.
Yeah.
He was a great goal scorer. And I don't know if he ever got enough notoriety for that aspect of his game and how hard he competed, but he said he was nasty to play against in practice. And very interesting choice. That's a good choice.
Yeah, overshadowed by Guy. Guy was a rock star. Come on. I mean, let's face it.
Oh, the original flower. The original flower.
The original flower.
Yeah.
There you go. Two honored members of the Hockey Hall of Fame, Mike Bossy and Steve Shutt. I've got a lot for you, John, but of course, we're not these guys that do these hour and a half pods. We do short,
Shorty.
effective, informative, and hopefully a little bit entertaining. And but I've got some great stuff for you in the not so distant future. But for now, we'll see you at the Climate Pledge Arena. A lot of the folks here will see you on Root Sports Northwest and also on TNT.
Yes.
And, we always look forward to watching you perform.
Thank you, buddy. Great to be with you. Let's do this again before the break.
Absolutely. Thank you
Okay.
very much. He's John Forslund. I'm Rob Simpson. It is the Simmer and Forslund podcast, and it's SeattleHockeyInsider.com and all the other cool places. See you next time.